Think about the very first thing you do every single morning. Before you even open your eyes, you're interacting with a hidden operating system that runs your entire biology. We often view health as this checklist of separate habits, right? A good diet, some exercise, maybe a little meditation. But beneath the surface, there are invisible biological forces shaping the quality of your life every single day. So in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the evolutionary, the neurochemical, and honestly, the microscopic consequences of just one incredibly common action, hitting the snooze button. So here's the ultimate morning paradox. You wake up exhausted, you beg your phone for just 9 more minutes of rest, and yet, when that alarm goes off a second time, you actually feel infinitely worse. Why does that happen? Well, science has recently uncovered exactly why, and it reveals a pretty profound vulnerability in how the human brain boots up. You see, the transition from sleep to waking reality, it's not an instant on-off switch. What you're actually feeling when you reach for that button isn't just normal tiredness. It's a phenomenon called sleep inertia. When you wake up abruptly, you enter this fractured state where your brain is literally torn between two worlds. The conscious part of you is awake, it hears the alarm, but neurologically speaking, your deeper cortical networks are effectively paralyzed. They're still desperately trying to finish their nightly repair cycles. And the result of that clash? Profound biological confusion. And the sheer scale of this behavior is staggering. Look at this. A massive study of university students showed that over 70% of them regularly use the snooze function. And here's the really interesting part. The vast majority of people use it because they want to reduce their anxiety about oversleeping. They want a gentle transition, but they are completely unaware that they're hacking their biological hardware in the worst possible way. Let's look at what's actually happening inside your brain when you make that choice. When you naturally wake up, your body seamlessly completes its sleep cycles. It's restorative. But when you snooze, you initiate this artificial environment of immense physiological stress. You're subjecting your brain to the violence of forced micro-awakenings. You drop back to sleep, sure, but you don't return to deep rest. Instead, your brain endures a systemic shock every 5 to 10 minutes. To put that into perspective, snoozing destroys roughly 20% of your sleep in that terminal 30-minute window. By constantly hitting that button, you're effectively dragging your brain backward, shredding the final phase of your sleep architecture. Now, that results in the loss of about 6 vital minutes of actual rest. But honestly, it's not even just about the lost time. It's about the specific type of sleep you're trapping yourself in. You might think you're banking deep rest, but brainwave measurements prove something entirely different. Snoozing artificially prolongs stage N1. This is a highly drowsy transitional state. By staying in N1, you are locking your brain in a non-restorative purgatory. You aren't getting the benefits of deep sleep, and you aren't getting the sharp alertness of being awake. You're literally just actively amplifying your own daytime fatigue. Which brings us to a really fascinating biological mystery. If jarring alarms and snooze buttons are so destructive to our neural networks, how did evolution actually intend for us to wake up? To answer that, we have to peel back a deeper layer and look at the ancient ignition system running quietly inside your brain, starting hours before the sun even comes up. Deep inside your hypothalamus sits a master biological conductor. Hours before you wake, it triggers this beautiful anticipatory cascade. First, it slowly raises your core body temperature and turns up your sympathetic nervous system. Then, it activates your stress and energy command center, the HPA axis, which starts releasing chemical messengers right into your bloodstream. Your body is smoothly and brilliantly preparing your metabolism and heart rate for the intense demands of waking consciousness. And it all builds to this incredible grand finale, the cortisol awakening response. This is a rapid, predictable spike in cortisol in the first 30 to 45 minutes after you open your eyes. Now, I know cortisol often gets a bad rap as just a stress hormone, but that is a profoundly misunderstood truth. This morning surge isn't a stress response at all. It's a vital, anticipatory signal designed to sharpen your attention, mobilize glucose for your brain, and completely clear away the mental fog. A totally healthy wake cycle results in a robust cortisol spike of up to 75%. But when the alarm abruptly pulls you from deep sleep and you fragment your morning by continually snoozing, you completely bypass this natural prep phase. The result? A severely blunted chemical response, often rising less than 25%. That heavy, dragging feeling in your limbs, that total lack of motivation, that is the literal physical manifestation of a chemical failure. You've short-circuited your body's ignition system. It's basically like booting up your computer but deliberately unplugging the hard drive. Without that cortisol surge, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for high-level thinking, is temporarily underactivated. You're leaving your most advanced cognitive networks starved of the endocrine signals they desperately need. And that severely diminishes your working memory and your reaction times for up to 4 entire hours into your day. Half your workday completely derailed by a 9-minute choice. But the grogginess is just the surface symptom. The invisible damage happening beneath your skull is actually much more severe, because snoozing actively sabotages your memory. To understand the sheer scale of this disruption, we have to look at what your brain is actually doing during those highly fragile final hours of the night. Think of your brain like an incredibly busy librarian. For every single hour you are awake during the day, taking in new data, your brain requires roughly 30 minutes of sleep to properly process, integrate, and consolidate that information. So if you're awake for 16 hours, your brain needs 8 hours of uninterrupted sorting time to move those fragile, short-term experiences into permanent storage. And this sorting process is an amazingly intricate dance. First, deep, slow-wave sleep transfers facts from the hippocampus to the cortex. Then, REM sleep reorganizes those memories and processes your emotions. Finally, stage N2 sleep filters out environmental noise and locks in those new neural connections. And crucially, a massive portion of this delicate memory integration happens in the early morning hours. When you hit the snooze button, you're dropping a bomb right in the middle of this delicate final stage. During this final stretch, we see these incredible phenomena called sleep spindles. These are short, synchronous bursts of electrical activity in your brain acting like biological shields. They quiet outside noise so your hippocampus can literally replay yesterday's experiences. By repeatedly hitting snooze, you are violently tearing down those shields, preventing your brain from hitting save on your life's experiences. And unfortunately, it gets worse. Unbroken sleep is what allows your glymphatic system to actively pump spinal fluid, washing through the brain to clear away cellular debris, like beta-amyloid proteins. Fragmenting this final sleep phase halts that clearance process. You are essentially leaving biological trash to just accumulate in your neural pathways, driving inflammation, cognitive fog, and accelerating the invisible process of neurological aging. There's actually a specific microscopic brainwave signature associated with high IQ, superior memory performance, and verbal fluency. Science calls them CAP-A1 cycles. The sheer precision of this biological disruption is just staggering, because sleep science shows that fragmenting your morning sleep directly suppresses these exact brainwaves. By snoozing, you are literally suppressing the biological markers of high intelligence. And this is where we see the hidden operating system fully revealed. What starts as a seemingly harmless morning habit cascades into a terrifying biological chain reaction. Terminal sleep fragmentation blunts your cortisol response. That leads to HPA axis exhaustion. That exhaustion impairs memory consolidation, triggering chronic systemic inflammation, which eventually heightens your risk of neurodegenerative decline as you age. I want you to really absorb this from the clinical literature. A blunted cortisol awakening response is a biomarker for a system in deep distress. It's absolutely critical to realize that chronic morning exhaustion is not a character flaw. It's not laziness. It is a biological symptom of a highly interconnected system, your nervous system, your hormones, your circadian rhythms, crying out for alignment. And this realization, it changes everything. Health isn't just a checklist of isolated habits. Sleep influences your hormones. Your hormones regulate your nervous system. Your nervous system dictates cellular inflammation, and that inflammation shapes your cognitive longevity for decades to come. Your health is the emergent result of all these incredibly interconnected biological processes happening inside you every single moment of every day. Once you see the interconnectedness of your own biology, you just can't unsee it. It changes how you view your body, how you think about aging, and how you see your future. If a single tap on a screen can disrupt your hormones, your memory processing, and your brain's entire waste removal system, the ultimate question is, how will you choose to wake up tomorrow?